chapter 185 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Nanda rescued from Varuna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Once, Nanda, observing the Ekadashi Vrata, went to bathe in the river Yamuna. The Vrata was mainly the observance of strict fast on Ekadashi day, praying to Lord Narayana all day through and the night too, and after a bath in the river, to have an early meal on the next day, Dwadeshi. As per the rules of the Vrata, on the morning of Dwadeshi, Nanda entered the waters of Yamuna. The sun had not yet risen and the time was said to belong to the Asuras. And when he saw Nanda bathing in the river an Asura grabbed him and took him to the presence of Varuna, the lord of the waters. The Gopalas, seeing that Nanda had not come out of the water, became anxious and later frantic. They rushed to Krishna and Rama and told them what had happened. Krishna knew that this was Varuna's mischief. He went into the nether world and entered the palace of Varuna. Varuna fell at his feet, worshipped him and said, "Only now have I become blessed. The purpose of my birth has been served. Those who touch your feet once are rid forever from the bondage of births and deaths. Please forgive my servant, who is just an ignorant being. He did not know who you are, nor did he know that he had captured your father. Please bear us no ill will and go back with your father." Krishna went back to the earth and to the Vrindavana with Nanda. Nanda was amazed at the bhakti which Varuna showed to his son, and he saw the wealth and greatness of Varuna. He wondered at the greatness of his son, that such a demigod like Varuna should have laid all his wealth at his feet and asked him for forgiveness. He spoke about it to all his people, and what had been creeping into their minds for the past few days became now a certainty, that Krishna was a god and not a human being. They thought to themselves, "We know that he is the Lord of Lords. Will he, in his infinite kindness, let us reach Vaikunta, his abode?" Krishna knew what was in their minds. He thought about it for a long time. He told himself, the Brahman is without any gunas. When it is touched by the quality aham, meaning when the ego sprouts in the placid lake called the Atman, where all the gunas are in equilibrium. When this happens, Maya takes command of the situation. The Atman forgets its true nature and becomes involved in samsara. Ahankara leads to avidya, ignorance, meaning ignorance of one's real self. This avidya leads to kama and the attendant evils, and this in its turn leads to karma. Once the Atman gets entangled in the web called karma, he has to go through the cycle of births and deaths, and this goes on until he realizes the truth about himself, that he is but the Brahman. There is no chance for these innocent people to realize the Brahman unless I show it to them. Krishna then, in his infinite kindness and affection for the Gopalas, revealed to them the Brahman. He made them see Vaikunta, the abode of Narayana, because they had performed one tapas and only one tapas, and that was the pure love they had for Krishna. This was the only tapas they were capable of, and they had performed it well. Brahman, which is apart from the play of the Prakriti, which is pure knowledge, meaning self-luminous, self-illuminating, which means it needs no light of knowledge or of the intellect to be shed on it, since it is itself the intellect and knowledge, which is truth, meaning which is never born and which can never die, which is ananta, that is, which has neither a beginning nor an end, which is realized by minds which are capable of shedding the screen called Maya. That Brahman revealed to the Gopalas, the poor, ignorant, uneducated Gopalas, because they were great in their love for the Lord, their bhakti. Then they saw Vaikunta. First they lost their entity in the Brahman as though they had been drowned in the immensity of the universal soul. Krishna knew that they could not bear it for a long time, and he got them back from their trance and made them see Vaikunta. The Lord Narayana was Krishna, and he was worshipped by the Vedas. And when they looked up away, the Gopalas saw the same Krishna by their side in the Brindavana. They shook themselves, and there was a lost look in their eyes, as if to say, was it real, what we saw, or was it a vision? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast. Chapter 186 of Shrimadbhagavatam, on a moonlight night. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sharad Rutu had set in. The nights were filled with the perfume of the jasmines, and the season made Krishna remember the promise he had given to the gopis on the day he had taken away their garments on the banks of the Yamuna early in the morning one day during the month of Margashirsha. The Lord, who is the refuge of all beings, of all things, animate and inanimate, made up his mind to make his devotees happy. The night of the full moon was fast approaching. On the night which he had decided on, the moon, the king of the stars, rose in the east. The east was red with the soft rays of the rising moon. He was like a lover who, after a long absence, caresses the face of his beloved, wiping her tears. Even so, he assuaged the fatigue of the people with his cool light. Krishna went to the banks of the Yamuna. The sands were silvery and golden with light of the newly risen moon, and the moon itself looked like a huge orange globe. It was as beautiful as the face of Lakshmi. The forest nearby was bathed in the light of the moon. Krishna took up his flute, placed it on his lips, and breathed softly into it. The notes of music which came from the river bank far away reached the houses in Brindavana, and they reached the ears of the young gopis who were thinking of Krishna and only Krishna. In their hearts there was place for no other thought. The music was maddening and they could not resist it. Each one of them wanted to go where Krishna was, and their madness was so intense that they did not even pause to think. They rushed out of their houses, and with their earrings swinging in harmony with their thoughts, they ran fast towards the banks of Yamuna. One of the girls was milking the cow when she heard the divine music, and she left her cow as it was, dropped the vessel into which she was milking, and rushed out of the house. Some of them were watching the milk which they had placed on the fire, and they did not wait to see if the milk boiled over. They rushed out. One woman left the pot with the rice boiling on the oven and did not bother about what happened to it. While serving food to the elders, one girl heard the music of Krishna's flute, and she ran out, not caring what they thought of her. The women forgot their husbands, their elders, their children, their duties, and their everything. The only desire in their minds was to be with Krishna. They even forgot to dress themselves beautifully. One girl had not finished applying the collyrium to her eye, and another was halfway through placing a string of flowers in her hair. With her looks all awry, she ran too. The people at home tried to stop them and ask them where they were going, but the gopis paid no heed to their question or to their restraining hands. There were some who had been successfully restrained by the people at home, and these women thought only of Krishna. With their minds set on Krishna, they went into a deep trance-like state wherein their sins became destroyed because of their devotion to Krishna, and they attained moksha. It is said that when a man performs acts which are good and collects punya, he reaches the punya lokas, and when his papa is accumulated, he gets a papa janma, meaning that of birds or animals. If, however, there is a mixture of punya and papa, he is then thinking on the Lord, and their punya was lost, since they thought of the Lord as their lover, and so, left as they were with neither papa nor punya, they reached salvation, moksha. After listening to the words of Shuka king, Parikshit asked him, "My lord, my mind is assailed with a doubt. You tell me that these women attained salvation because they loved Krishna, but they did not worship him as Parabrahman, but they loved him as they would a lover who can grant them sensual pleasures. How can their love be rewarded with moksha? Krishna to them was a Jara Purusha and not a god. He was very handsome and desirable, and they were eager to have him. How can you call their love by the name devotion, bhakti? Please elucidate this mystery to me." Shuka said, "Have you not heard that when a man drinks nectar, even he is under the impression that it is poison? He does not become affected by the poison, but benefits by the nectar. Even so, the gopis, no doubt, thought of Krishna as an earthly lover, but the fact that Krishna was the Parabrahman changed this love into bhakti, and they attained salvation. Have I not told you how Shishupala hated the Lord, and he attained moksha in spite of this hatred, because the object of his hatred was the Paramatman, and he had been thinking incessantly on the Lord? Even so, the gopis, by thinking on the Lord all the time, became released from the bondage called karma. But the Paramatma and the Pratyagatma are the same unpolluted truth. The Paramatman and Pratyagatma are the same unpolluted truth, but the Avaranas, the endless vasanas, attached to the Atman during its many transits through the world of living, cover up the purity, screen it, veil it, and the Brahman is not seen. But Krishna, who was beyond the pale of the vasanas, beyond the reach of the opposites, was the object of the devotion of these ignorant women, and so the fact that they did not know that he was the Paramatman, the fact that their love for him was sensual, neither of these in any way detracted from the fact that their bhakti was for the Paramatma, and so they attained salvation. Those who have constant desire for him, constant anger against him, constant hatred towards him, constant love for him, or any other kind of kinship are sure to attain salvation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Chapter 187 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Krishna and the Gopis. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna saw all the gopis surrounding him, lost in the music of his magic flute. He looked at all of them and spoke sweet words. He said, "In the middle of the forest, at this time of the night, you have all come here. What can I do to please you all? Please tell me the reason why you have come here in a group. It is late in the night, and there may be dangerous animals lurking in the bushes. Please go back to your homes. It is not right that you should be here now. Your kinsfolk will all be waiting for you. Go back before their anger swells up. You must have come to see the river in the moonlight. Look at the forest around you. The beams of the silver moon have made it so very beautiful, and the cool breeze which comes after caressing the waves of the river is indeed very soothing to the limbs. Now that you have stood here for a while, please do not tarry, but go back to your homes. Your husbands are waiting for you. Your children will be crying for your comforting arms around them. You will have to attend to your cows and calves. Why do you look accusingly at me? Have you, by any chance, come here to spend your time with me? I am pleased to know that it is so. All beings are full of love for me, but you should not forget where your duties lie. Attending to your husbands and to your children should be your prime consideration. This love you have for me, for someone other than your husbands, is not good for any women. It leads you away from heaven. It is futile and it brings a stigma to your name. It is a secret desire, and as such, the fear of being found out is always there. Please desist from this action. Go back home and remember the great devotion you have for me, which is because you have been constantly hearing about my actions, by thinking on me, by singing about me, and seeing me often. That devotion will not equal this love, which is wrong. So, once again, I am asking you, please go back to your homes. The gopis stood as though they had been carved out of stones. The words of Krishna were unwelcome and they were not pleasing to their ears. They felt frustrated and their faces faded like flowers. Their hearts were filled with sorrow and they cast their faces down. Sighs escaped their red lips and their eyes filled with tears. They stood silent and Krishna could see their tears glistening in the light of the moon. With soft, timid voices, they began to talk indistinctly to Krishna, who had spoken such harsh words to them. Their tears were falling incessantly, and they paid no heed to the fact that their eye black was all being erased, that their hair was all awry, that their garments had not been worn properly since they had been in such a hurry to reach the presence of Krishna. All these things were unheeded. All that they knew was that their quest was in vain and Krishna had spoken unkindly to them. They all spoke together and one by one. Krishna, it is not becoming of you that you should talk like this. We have abandoned everything and come to you for succor. Please do not cast us away. You talk so glibly about rules of conduct, that our place is our homes and that we should attend to our husbands, to our elders and to our children. You can keep your sermons to yourself. We came here not to listen to a discourse on how to conduct oneself, on how a woman should behave. We have come to you trusting that you will never abandon us. You ask us to be faithful to the home, to the husband and child. If all these do not grant you happiness, what then is the use of such a dharma? Learned men have said that abandoning these bondages, one should set one's mind on the Eternal One. And we have also been told that you are the Eternal One who has assumed a human form. We know nothing of Shastras and the nuances of Dharma. We have seen the learned ones thinking on you and saying that you are the path to moksha. Be that as it may, we have come to you because we love you. We are doing only what the wise are doing. Krishna, remember this love of ours for you has been there birth after birth. It must be, or else the intensity of our love cannot be explained. All these days we were absorbed in our household duties and were fairly happy and contented, or so we thought until you came. You stole our hearts, and ever since then we cannot become absorbed in the things which interested us before. It is very strange but true. Our eyes seek only for a sight of you. Our ears are ever waiting to hear the music of your anklets when you walk. You ask us to go back to our homes, but our feet are firmly planted and they refuse to move away from here. We are aching for a smiling look from your eyes, for your music, for an embrace from you which will assuage this thirst for you. Once our minds have led towards your feet, they can think of nothing else, and every action of ours is guided only by the thoughts of you. Please look kindly on us. We are your slaves. Tell us which women, after seeing you and your handsomeness, your smiling eyes, your face, your broad chest, and your long and lovely arms, which women, we say, is able to resist you? Please have compassion on us, our condition, and accept our love. Krishna smiled kindly on them and accepted their offering. Krishna, who was the incarnation of Narayana, who was the Lord of Lords, who was the eternal soul, who was the Parabrahman, who had no desires to be fulfilled, pretended to be an ordinary human being and allowed the gopis to make love to him. Krishna looked like the moon surrounded by the stars. He sang with them, he danced with the fragrance of the Vaijayanti Mala filling the air, with his hair flying in the breeze. He played with the women as though he were enjoying it all immensely. After a while, the gopis were so full of Krishna that they thought that Krishna belonged to them and to them only. Each one of the gopis thought to herself, "This Krishna has fallen in love with me and he loves no one else. He belongs to me and only to me." Pride found a corner in the heart of every one of them. Krishna had to teach them a lesson and he suddenly vanished from their presence. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Chapter 188 of Shrimadbhagavatam, The Search for Their Lost Love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Despair seized them when they realized that Krishna was really not to be found anywhere. Their love had reached the Unmatthavastha, meaning they were almost bereft of reason. They sang songs praising him and recounting his many deeds and his exploits ever since he was born. The gopis wandered in the forest looking for Krishna. They asked the trees if they knew where Krishna was. "Oh Ashwatha tree, oh banyan tree, did you by any chance see our Krishna who has stolen our hearts? Ashoka, Pannaga, Champaka, did you by any chance see Krishna? He was with us, and in our foolishness we thought we owned him, and so, to punish us, he has gone away and left us lamenting. Tell us if you saw him. Tulasi, Mallika, Malati, did any of you see our Krishna?" And so they kept on moaning and weeping and looking for the Lord. They suddenly saw Krishna's footprints and they seemed to be fresh. At once they tried to trace him down. They went some distance and found, to their dismay, the footprints of a woman alongside. Burning with jealousy, they spoke to each other. "Look, some woman has been dearer to Krishna than all of us. Look at the way the prints are twinning with each other. She has been clinging to him all the way. And look, suddenly her footprints are not seen at all. And Krishna's have sunk deep into the earth. And that means the woman, whoever she may be, has asked Krishna to carry her, and he has been doing so. Come, let us go further and see where this leads us. Look at the flowers from the creepers scattered here. Krishna must have plucked flowers for her. Fortunate indeed is this gopi who has claimed such privileges from him. He has been sitting here and he has dressed her hair with the flowers." The gopi who had gone along with Krishna was also later filled with pride, since she told herself, "Krishna loves me most. He has left all the others behind and come with me. He carried me in his arms and he dressed my hair with flowers. He loves me and only me." I said, "I am tired." And at once, without a frown, he raised me and held me in his arms. He then asked me to cling to his back. When I was thrilled with the thought that I was one with Krishna, he dropped me and vanished. "Where are you? Where have you gone, Krishna?" The gopis who were going in search of Krishna found her, and she told them how she too had been abandoned. They all came back to the banks of the Yamuna, and with tears in their eyes and with sobs punctuating their words, they sang the praises of Krishna and prayed to him to come back to them. Krishna knew that they were now rid of their pride, and he appeared in their midst. Dressed in his favorite yellow silk, with the garland of wildflowers tossing on his chest, with the fish-shaped earrings glinting in the moonlight, with a peacock's feather dancing amongst his lovely curls, Krishna appeared in their midst. They stood up with great joy and rushed towards him. They all tried to embrace him, to hold his hands, to place their heads on his shoulders, to stay as close to him as they could. They were like mumukshus who had attained kaivalya, like the samsarins who had found one who was proficient in Brahmavidya, who could lead them out of the morass in which they had been caught up, like the Vishwa and Tejas which had reached the Shushupti stage, that is, when the waking state and the dream state have passed, the Atman reaches the Shushupti state, the deep sleep state, with a sigh of relief, because this is the state where the opposites go to sleep, where there are no feelings, where there is nothing but peace, dreamless, thoughtless, agitationless peace, the state just short of Turiya. The night had advanced far now. The moon, whose white beams silvered the surroundings, had now reached the zenith. The flowers had all blossomed and the air was laden with their perfumes. The night had dissolved in the silver light of the moon, and the river Yamuna, dark in color, seemed to become golden like her elder sister Ganga. The sands on the banks of the river were touched by the waves from Yamuna, and the music of it was intoxicating. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast.